I've got a question from the audience already, Pejman.
Mhm.
Uh, I have a gentleman asking, you've been on both sides of the table. You've been somebody who was servicing high-end clients in your
Mhm.
banking career and your other businesses, and you are a luxury customer yourself.
Mhm.
If I want to work with luxury clients, what is it that they expect? What is somebody looking for?
So they expect trust. This is the thing with the luxury market is trust. Like if
Okay.
you want to get in this space, it's a question of simply creating the trust that others
Hmm.
have in the money exchange and in
Sure.
the product exchange. We're making wires for $50,000, $60,000 for a watch. For a watch. Like it's not even a need. You know, it's like I want a watch, it's gotta be that color. I want to pay $60,000 for it.
Correct.
Someone has to trust that when they wire you, you're not going to run away with the money. They have to trust that when they wire you, you're going to deliver on your promise. One of the key things I've realized is that I never really got into this space until I myself had earned the right to say, I am coming to you as a peer, not as a servant. One of the biggest mistakes people make in this
Very
space,
true.
they go, I want to serve the rich, and therefore you will never be part of the rich. And that's a very dangerous thing to do. You have to go into this space on an equal playing field, saying, I have a Lamborghini. I am going to help you attain your Lamborghini. Now, that brings you to become the expert in the attainment of a Lamborghini, not the servant that does the work of the leader, right? And
Absolutely.
that's where a big opportunity lies, is if you want to work with very wealthy clients,
Hmm.
start learning by working around the businesses that provide that same level and work in the business with others so you can see and earn enough money to rise up and then say, I'm going to now establish my own business and cater to the same clientele.
No, I think that's a great point that you need to surround yourself with people like that, and even with the environment like that. Go to the place.
100% all the time.
Yep.
Because, you know, when we're poor, like when you don't have money, if I told you I spent last week $500,000 on watches, you would be like, why would you do that? There's so many people hurting, they don't have money. Why are
Correct.
you buying $500,000 in watches? But that's not how this works. You know, you can't say like, why would you do that? But if you think that way, you're never even going to be like near that space, right? Because that's not like, that has no correlation with it. You know, it's like
Absolutely.
saying, why would you spend $30,000 flying from here to LA when you can take a flight for $500? Well, because there's 100 reasons why I can tell you why a private jet makes sense. But if you don't have enough money to dispose of $30,000, the meaning of $30,000 is different to you. And so you have to be in a space where you're constantly exposed to that so it can make sense to you. And from there, you can basically say, okay, this makes sense. So that's how I'm going to learn to work my mentality around.
No, and a lot of people forget that at the end of the day, we are animals, right? People can sense discomfort. So if you're
Mm-hmm.
not used to being around money or you're not used to being around people with money, people can tell.
Right. And then they look like they think of that and they say, well, what are you trying to get out of me? You know, what are you trying to
Yep.
rip me off with? Because I have a feeling you don't fit into this room. So we
What do
maybe
you,
are
what do you
not,
want?
you know,
Yep.
right. Like, why are you here? Right. And I always say one of the best ways you get into a meeting with very wealthy people is to wear a watch that's better than all the ones they have, so that they basically understand that, listen, if you have a 100K watch and I have a 50K watch,
Hmm.
then you're like me. We share the same values towards lifestyle and luxuries and things like that. And so they put their guard down where they go, I'm not so much trying to be afraid of what this guy does. I'm trying to learn back and forth about what we each do, you know?
Of course. So for the rest of the audience members, I want to encourage them to keep asking questions. I've got a great one for you, and I know you love talking to haters. You've got a lot of people that try and pull
I
you
love
down.
it. Yes.
What words of advice do you have for somebody who's starting out online, trying to do their own thing, but they've got people pulling them down in real life or online?
So I think first off, you have to understand where that hate comes from so
Hmm.
that you can understand if you should even address it or not. I think this is probably one of the most important pieces to understand about human nature as a whole.
Okay.
We defend what we're afraid to face. So let me give you a simple example. If you take a really heavy fat guy, like really heavy. He probably doesn't like the fact that he's fat. I don't think anybody likes not feeling good about themselves, right?
Correct.
They can't stop eating. They don't work out. They don't take care of themselves. They smoke. They have 100 reasons why they're fat, right?
And they know they're fat.
Well, they know that. Obviously, they can look in a mirror, look at other people and be like, that guy's very attractive. I'm way overweight. I'm not confident with myself.
Sure.
If I walk up to that guy and tell him, you're fat or you're a fat ass, he's going to get offended and he's going to fight me. Literally, he's going to say, well, who are you to judge me? Why should you judge me? Like, you're nobody. I don't care. You think you're better than me because you're skinny. Correct. He knows he shouldn't be fat. It's not news, but he's going to defend his position. He defends his positions because he doesn't have a path to changing it. And he doesn't have the willpower to see it to the end. So he has to defend even what he hates about himself, because if he admits that he's fat, then he has to do something about it. And he's not willing to. And so that's why when I go to someone and I say, you're poor, they get offended and they go, you think you're better than me because you have a nicer car. And I go, I don't think it's about a question of being better. You feel that way. So you're defending your position. Like when my friend comes to me and he makes $1 million a day net, and he says to me, you're poor, PJ. I said, yeah, in context, I am poor.
Of course. Because
I don't make $20 million a month, especially in my pocket. So yes, I am poor. I don't defend my position to say, well, I've done better than most. That doesn't matter. In the context of the situation, I am not offended because I have a path to getting where he is. And I understand that as of today, I'm poor. As of 10 years from now, I probably will be in a position to have that same conversation and say, well, technically we're the same. So if you have no path to change, then you go into the defensive. Okay. When people come to their friends and they go, I have a business idea, or I have this thing I want to do on YouTube, and their friends go, you're an idiot. You're not going to do it. This is stupid. You shouldn't do it. They say this not because they think your idea is stupid, because they don't share a similar path themselves. And as a result of not having the creativity to share such a similar path, they have to defend their position of doing nothing. So they go, this is stupid, because if you make it, then it shows me that I had to make it and I didn't. So we can no longer be friends. Get it? So you have to kind of push back. And what people need to realize is that when they bring these ideas to life and they move forward, it's really their friends saying, I'm afraid of losing you. So don't do this. You're going to lose us because I don't know how to get where you are. And so they have to realize that if people don't want to adapt, move, or grow with you, then they're going to break off eventually anyways. It's like saying you got a bad girlfriend that just doesn't want to change. And you're like, hey, we're going to move to the United States. And they're like, no, my friends are here. My family's here. And you're like, but our future is there. No, my friends are here. My family's here. Eventually, you're going to go and they're not. So you got to ask yourself, how long are you willing to waste trying to bring people with you who don't want to go somewhere versus finding others who really want to share a similar path? One thing I'll leave you with is that most people in the world look at life from a square basis, like a square, like this is a rectangle, right? Imagine if this was two squares together. This is the way they look at their lives. They go, we're two squares, so we got to become a rectangle together. So they attach to people. They attach to each other. They attach to their surrounding, to their boss, to their friends, and they basically become a large square. Okay. But the thing with a square is that it has ends, and it has beginning and end to each side. So they look at their life as a continuous start, stop, start, stop, start, stop. Okay. That's how we look at life. We're born and we're dead, right? Like start and stop. Yep. I look at life as a circle. There are no two circles that can connect. And here's the beauty of a circle. If it's always working like this, and another circle comes, it only meets at a very small point during a certain time, and then it disconnects again. Okay. And I look at people who are creative, people who are in control, people who have mastered life, to basically be circles, not squares. And they no longer need attachment to others. And they realize that paths will cross, paths will become stronger together, and then paths are meant to carry on separately. Attachment is not meant to become a forever thing.
I can see the philosophy kicking in.
Yes, but comfort is a square.
True.
Expansion is a circle. And this is the key to understanding that when circles expand, they
Mm-hmm.
grow, right? But when look at squares, they can't. Because if circles expand inside squares, right? You see how they don't have edges, they don't have beginning and end. They eventually consume
Absolutely.
the square. And what happens is, this is the part that gets really interesting. People who are circles that are trying to be friends with people who are squares, just like when you're a kid, you're trying to put the circle in the square box,
Yeah.
and it doesn't work, or vice
Never
versa.
works. Yep.
It's the same thing. It's just eventually you realize either the square or the circle is too big to fit in the other. And eventually you'll break off. So you have to figure out the personality types of the people you surround yourself with.
Got it.
And if they're circles, help them expand with you. If they're squares, help them become circles. Don't expect them to expand like circles. And if they want to stay squares, leave them alone. It's okay.
No, I think that's a great analogy, and thanks for that. We got a couple of more questions. We're good to keep going?
Yeah, you can go ahead.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
All right. So we got Vikas asking, Pejman, what were your biggest fears when you started as an entrepreneur?
I was afraid of staying poor. I think that was my biggest fear, and it held me back for a long time. I ran away from poverty for a large part of my younger life. Like I was like, I don't want to be poor. I'll do whatever to make money.
Correct.
And I didn't focus on growth. I focused on survival to a state of wealth, which is a very dangerous thing to do. I'll give you an example of how people do that in business too. And this kept me back a lot too.
Mm-hmm.
When I was in banking, I had a salary that was like $200,000. That was a lot of money, right?
Correct.
For a corporate job, it's a lot of money.
Yep.
And one of the things that happened is when I went to start my business, the first question I asked myself is, how do I make $200,000 so I can be better than my job? But my new business wasn't a bank, and it had nothing to do with banking. But yet I related the two together because I was afraid of being poor. My business at that time could have done $10 million, but I didn't think that way. I thought, how do I make up $200,000? So the limitation of thinking to basically replace comfort was what basically kept me stuck for a long time and didn't let me focus on the growth, but let me focus on the survival.
Got it. I'm sure there are times, Pejman, that you're down. I'm sure you have bad days like everybody else.
I used to, not anymore.
I think you probably just go for a drive when you have bad days.
Yes. And then I remind myself that there could be worse days.
Okay. So when you used to have bad days, how do you keep yourself motivated when things aren't going your way?
I blame myself for everything that happened in my life. When I changed that view on my life, everything started getting better. It was always my fault no matter what. So therefore I was always in a position to fix it. If something is not your fault, you turn into a victim. So even, let's say, for example, you're driving and another car hits you.
Correct.
You go, well, it's not my fault. The guy ran the light, he hit me. It is your fault. It is your fault because you didn't look. Even though you say, well, he hit my back, it wasn't my fault. It is your fault because you didn't pay attention that someone was in your back. The reason you want to think that way, even if there are things you could not control, is because if you think that way, you're not a victim of the accident anymore. You're now part of the solution of the accident. And one of the worst parts of society and life is to remain a victim stuck in a box and not expand your energy outwards to fix the issue at hand. If you're a victim of an accident, you're waiting for a solution to be provided to you to get rid of your victimhood.
Okay.
If you're in charge of the accident, even if you didn't cause it, you're now in charge of moving forward past the accident. We can use the same psychology towards people who have been raped, people who have been hurt. In their head, something has been done to them. And while on no level that is okay, or it should not be addressed or somehow helped through this incident, the longer they keep this mentality that something was done to them, the longer they are waiting for someone to come rescue them and to validate what was done to them. Instead of actually moving forward and fixing the issue, they allow the issue to define their next 30 years of existence. And I think that in the same way, while I can't speak for saying that, okay, if you've been raped, don't worry about it, it's not as simple as that. I can also say that one of the greatest ways you can give validation to the person that tried to harm you is by showing them how they ruined your life for the next 30 years and how they controlled your life. And if this incident controls the next 30 years, then they won. But if this incident was just an isolated 10 minutes of your life and you never gave it value, you never allowed it to become a problem in your head, getting bigger and bigger and bigger,
Correct.
then basically they lost the moment it ended. And I think that this is a very important mentality to take towards business too. You're always at fault, so therefore you're always the solution to the problem. If you're having a bad day, ask yourself why. If it's because you had a bill come up for your car and you can afford to pay it, go find the solution to making the money to pay it. Don't worry about the bill. The bill's not going to go away just because you're worried about it.
Correct.
Right? So sitting there and saying, I'm worried that I can't pay it, that doesn't change anything. You still can't pay it.
So basically, everything is your fault and you need to find a solution for everything that happens in your life.
Always.
Got it. We've got a beginner who just started their career. They're looking for a suggestion on how they can become as successful as you are.
How can they become assets?
As successful as you.
Oh, well, basically adopt this mentality that your circle and you have to expand, that you're always at fault for everything that happens to you. And you should always commit to knowing whatever you choose to do is your purpose. Now, here's the part that differentiates them from me, is you have to be willing to commit to that day in and day out without failure for 10 years. And anyone who commits to that 10 years, regardless of what you do, you will look back and be like, I know exactly where I'm going in life and I know exactly what I have to do. Even if it takes you another 10 years. I had to take 10 years to get to a part where I could make a decision on what I wanted to do. And I had to take another 10 years to get really good at it.
Got it. No, I think that's great advice. We've got Deepti asking, what are your top 3 learnings from the life that you have lived?
That's a very deep and long question, but I think life is continuity. It doesn't have a beginning or end. I think that's something that I've learned. It's a continuous journey. Time is the greatest resource we have, and it has nothing to do with business. And the last thing I tell you I learned is that life isn't about winning, it's about experiencing. And the more you focus on experiencing, the more you'll win. And the more you'll win, the better the experience is. So if you focus on that philosophy of back and forth instead of just winning, then you'll realize from a very early age that you're never competing with anybody but yourself. And so the goal of life should never be to be better than your neighbor, better than your other business, better than your competitor. It should always be to be better than yourself every year, even if it's just 1%. Because I guarantee that even if you look back and you say, I've improved 1% every day, you'll have grown 365% by the end of the year. And the average person basically doesn't grow more than 2% a year. So if that is your take on it, even if you grow 60% and you go, I failed the other times, you're still significantly higher than the average human evolution, which means that you will progress faster, learn faster, and grow harder.
No, I think that's a great takeaway. Pejman, any regrets so far in your life, personally, professionally, that you want to talk about?
I've made a lot of mistakes. I don't regret them. I think they were part of the experience of life. I think that's what I was saying. Like the more you focus on experiencing and not winning, you see, I think I'll leave you with this because I also have to go after this.
Sure, of course.
I think if this is philosophy meets business meets, hopefully people will change their lives entirely. Stop looking at life in the right and wrong way. Stop saying this is right, this is wrong. This is the right way, this is the wrong way. This is the right path, this is the wrong path. This was the right decision, this was the wrong decision. If you get rid of the word right and wrong, you stop living life through the boundary of a square. You stop living life from a beginning and ending. And instead, you have to have a value system because value systems are part of how we elevate as humans. Absolutely. You have to be able to know, am I going in the correct direction or not, of my life, right? And one of the things that's very difficult is when you say right and wrong, you start questioning, well, who came up with what's right and wrong? Society did. So why do we evolve at a pace of rules and societal direction that was set and established 300 years ago? We shouldn't. How we should change the word right and the word wrong is by changing towards wisdom and towards deceit. If you change your entire vocabulary from am I following a path of wisdom or a path of deceit? Am I making the wisdom-based decision or a deceitful one? You will realize that the experiences life throws your way by choosing a path of wisdom will always be experiences you needed to experience in order to overcome yourself. If you, however, choose the path of deceit, you will run into experiences that basically force you to overcome only to be back in front of the same choice again of wisdom and deceit. That is why people who choose a deceitful life often end up sitting in the same place years later, wondering the same things. And people who choose a path of wisdom often move forward, overcoming their shadows and their light into a state where they can literally be sitting there saying, I may be rich, I may be poor, I may be strong, I may be weak, but I know exactly where I'm going. And this is the reason most people don't get anywhere, is they don't have a path, they don't have a direction. They're sailing a ship without being a captain. They're sailing a ship without having a compass. They're sailing a ship without knowing where they're going. And at some point or another, the ship runs out of fuel. At some point or another, the crew gets tired. At some point or another, people doubt that you know where you're going. And you stand by yourself alone, deceiving yourself that you knew exactly the journey you embarked on. However, if you took a path of wisdom, then you understand that the higher you elevate your mind, the more you educate yourself, the further you push your mastery, the further the ship will move, because you know exactly the direction it's moving in, and you will learn how to continue to make it move forward as long as you don't lose sight of the direction.
Got it. I think those are great words to end the conversation on, Pejman. Essentially, be the CEO of your own life and be true to yourself.
Yes, always.
I know that the audience has enjoyed the conversation as much as I have, and thank you so much for making the time. I want to wish you the best. Yeah, I want to wish you the best. Stay safe, and we'll definitely stay connected, Pejman. All the best.
Absolutely. Thanks again.
Thank you. Take care. Thank you, everyone, for watching another very successful conversation on the CEO's chair. Look forward to seeing you all next time. Thank you.